Greetings, salutations, another sundry affair. I am your cinematic professor and the purveyor of truth in movies. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm very happy to have joining me for the Outtakes cameras, Marco Zaror, who is the star of Fist of the Condor. This movie, wow, had some martial arts in it like you've never seen before. And I'm certainly glad that we have Marco in front of the cameras today to talk a little bit about this. Marco, welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you, man? Very exciting. Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah. Hey, let's begin with you actually got into the movie business by being a stuntman. How did that come about?
Well, when I first arrived to LA, I was teaching in a gym in Valley Total Fitness. I was teaching martial arts. And then I remember some friend invited me to go train to this gym called LA Valley College, where all the stunt industry kind of trained, some stunt people there. Back in the day, I remember I was like 20 years old. And I trained there. Like after a couple of years training, a guy named Andy Chang that trained there saw me, and he just came to me as like, Marco, you want to do stunts? I'm like, yeah, and it was basically Andy Chang that he's like from the Jackie Chan stunt team, and he was directing the Rock movie, The Rundown. Mm-hmm. And then that was my first like big break to the Hollywood industry, working in a massive like Universal Pictures movie, doubling him and doing his action scenes next to his cousin Tanoi Reed. And that was kind of like my first experience to learn really how you put together a fight scene and how you the whole stunts and the big industry, how it works. So it was amazing.
Now, that's the same movie, if I'm not mistaken, that you were nominated for a Taurus World Stunt Award.
Yes, exactly. We won Best Overall Stunt. We were 4 stunts. It was me and Tanoi for doubling The Rock, and Seann William Scott and Paul Liapolis to doubling Seann William Scott, and me and Tanoi doubling The Rock. Sorry. So It was 2 actors, and each actor had 2 stuntmen.
That was a good movie. I enjoyed The Rundown an awful lot. It's one of my favorite action films.
And it was J.J. Perry too. That's where I met J.J. Perry. So J.J. and Paul Liapolis were doubling Seann William Scott, and me and Tanoi were doubling The Rock. That was I got a little confused with the names though. Yeah.
Now you started training in the martial arts. Well, first, I guess we should ask, what do you consider yourself first, a martial artist or an actor?
A martial artist, 100%, yes. Because I became an actor because of the opportunity that life gave me to express myself as a martial artist and as a human being through a camera. And my relationship with movies and with acting, it always has to do with physicality, and it always has to do with finding roles that I feel I can express myself as a martial artist also. So yes, I did acting classes and I did all that stuff. But for example, for me, an actor it's Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, that when one movie they can be an agent, other movie they're a doctor, other movie they're a lawyer. So they mutate, right? In my case, for example, an action actor, like for example, Sylvester Stallone or Arnold, or I don't know, like or more a martial artist to be very specific. Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan. Jackie Chan, he's an actor, but he's a martial artist. So when you go to the movies to see Jackie Chan, right, in different stories, or Bruce Lee, the same thing. He was my big inspiration. So I consider myself more related to them than I consider myself related to like Al Pacino or De Niro. You know, like that's why I will say first I consider myself a martial artist.
Now, you actually started training in the martial arts when you were about 6 years old. And some of the styles, according to your official bio on the internet, you have some. Well, you started off with Taekwondo and with kickboxing, but you also have very traditional styles like Shotokan in your background. And I'm wondering, since a lot of those styles are very different, you know, the kickboxing, the MMA style, Taekwondo is Korean, has a lot of high flashy kicks. Shotokan, very traditional grounder. How do you find the way to kind of merge all of those together into the style that you practice and that you have?
Yeah, because for me, it's like it's all about movement and self-expression. So I like to learn different doctrines and different styles and ways of doing things. But at the end, it's like the more information and the more mobility in your body, then the more control you're gonna have, and the more you're gonna know your own self, right? So for me, it's like I've been training my whole life different styles, and it depends on who is teaching that style that catch my attention. So at the beginning, I was very into Kung Fu because of Bruce Lee when I was a kid. But then I opened up to more like, you know, karate and taekwondo and like, and then acrobatics, MMA, because I wanted to learn. And if I find a good master, a good teacher that teaches karate or taekwondo or whatever, then I will want to learn from him. So I got inspired from whatever was teaching that, you see, to learn something from that human being and that journey, instead of, oh, I gotta learn karate, or oh, I gotta learn taekwondo. No, it happens that I met a guy that in a way I was like, wow, you know, I really admire, or I really look up to him. I just want to learn from him, whatever he has to learn, whatever he can share with me. And it's been my life journey, you know.
And who are some of the teachers that had, you think, the biggest influence on your life?
Teachers, well, back in Chile, I have Roberto Fernandez from Kenshin Kan Karate. In a moment, then Esteban Vitagliano, that was from the Taekwondo, you know, WTF, Humberto Norambuena, that was from, you know, like he was the one that teach me, even though he's a master in Taekwondo, but from him I learned all the submission and you know, and all that. Jose Luis Mosca is like more the kickboxing kind of style, and then different people around my journey, like, you know, when I arrived to LA, I remember, you know, training with you know, different like friends, a group of friends that I've learned from, not teachers, we were just friends training and sharing knowledge. You know, that was more like my journey, I will say. You know, Roberto Perez was one of an amazing martial artist that I've learned from Mexico too, that he was he was the first one to kind of like I start seeing all these acrobatics and this more crazy techniques, you know.
How long each day is your workout session?
Today is not that much, but it's very intense. Today it's like an hour and a half, but it's an hour and a half that I'm connected with my Polar that monitors my heart, and I focus my intensity looking at my heart when I'm training. So it's pretty intense. It's pretty intense training. Yeah.
Did your mom have a big influence on your training? I read somewhere online that she is, let me get this straight, she is the first woman to have a black belt in your homeland.
Yeah. My mother was, she gave speeches in a Buddhist temple in Peru with a master that arrived to Peru, and she was giving like speeches to all the community. Then, you know, study Kung Fu, and then when she moved to Chile, she was like in the moment where there was prohibited martial arts because of the military government that arrived, like so the politics and all that. So then it was prohibited, and then she trained in like an underground karate school, and she became kind of one of the first women black belt in Chile. And when I was born, she took me with her, and I was just there hanging out, like looking, and that's how she was my first basically inspiration to martial arts. Yeah.
Nice. And you gave her a part in the movie, did you not?
Oh, yes. So
Okay,
that's why she needed to be the master of the woman condor. So that was a very nice thing because, she always wanted to be an actress, and she studies, like she reads books. She writes books. So she wrote like 4 books, published 4 books, and she's very in this communicative. She's very like an artist, she gives speeches and stuff like that, and reads poetry. And so I knew, and because of her martial arts and her knowledge with this world, then she was perfect for the role, So that was
right, let's talk a little bit about the movie itself. You know, I gotta tell you, I'm watching this movie, and it ends, but it doesn't end.
yes.
Okay, the story, and I even said this when I did my review. I did my review about a month ago when this movie first came out and went into the theaters. And when I'm sitting there waiting for the big conclusion, and I'm like, what happened? So I've got to ask you, while you're sitting here, are you going to leave us hanging, or is there going to be another chapter?
No. I love so much this world that I want to do this. I want to continue the story, of course. And when we did this movie, it was back in quarantine when we thought that the world was going to end. So we did this movie without thinking that it was going to be a movie. We shot this knowing that we have a beautiful story that we shot it for because of the need of expressing ourselves as filmmakers, as martial artists, and we tried to stay honest to that process, but we wanted to continue. We didn't want to stop. So when the time comes to put it together as a product, then we realize, well, we're going to have to continue because we need to continue to tell the story. And we need to continue so people know who's the real warrior of the Fist of the Condor. Like, who's the one of these 2 brothers that is going to be the protector of the book. And then at the end, that's kind of like what is coming. Like in the second film, what we want is to see the 2 brothers, to kind of reveal this past with these 2 brothers and the story and their connection, and to discover the warrior of the Fist of the Condor. And that's kind of like that.
Wrapping it up.
Yeah. So we need to wrap it up like that, and then we have our warrior that's going to protect this book, and then we can continue, and we're going to have people coming from all over the world wanting this book. So that's the whole idea of it.
So how many more movies are you planning in this series?
Well, I'm not as many as the audience want to see. The story, it's very rich, and I think it has a lot of elements to do a big story, because like I said, one of the movie that we feel it can happen, like it needs to happen now, is to understand their dilemma with these 2 brothers, and to solve this, and to see who's going to be the one that's going to protect the book. But once we know who's that warrior, then that warrior is going to have his own journey now, and you're going to have a lot of people wanting this book. So it's a very interesting setup for continuing the story as much as the audience want to see the character.
Now, we should point out for folks that haven't seen the movie yet that you actually play a dual role, because you're playing both brothers. So when you do that, did you have to alter your fighting style so that there's a difference between the 2?
Yeah, well, we didn't do a big fight scene, so it's not yet necessary, but I'm looking forward for that. It's going to be a beautiful challenge to have these two brothers fighting, to bring their personality on the fight scene and see them connect and attack and do all that with these two brothers. And that's going to be very interesting. I'm really looking forward to that.
Okay, I'm curious as to, I mean, most people know about, if you're in the martial arts, there's a lot of, there's the tiger and there's the viper or the snake and there's the crane, but you really don't hear too much about the condor. So explain to me why you decided to pick the condor as the animal in which this style revolves around.
Because, well, the condor, it's our animal in Latin America. It's in our flag in Chile. It's in the mountains. It lives in our culture. It's part of our culture. Mm-hmm. So the condor is tied with the Mapuche culture and the indigenous people. Like it's our animal, right? In terms of our geography, right? So for me, it was great. And because I've been doing a lot of animal flow, when we kind of thought about it, and we're like, look, the condor represents us. It's an honest expression of who we are. So we need to explore with the condor. And of course, because of my fight style, that I don't have a defined style, I needed to create this way of movement for the movie and to put it into the story and this book. So that was the challenge, and that was the beauty of it,
So how did you say how I want to say this? You have all these different martial arts that you've studied. How did you have to study the condor so that you could take its movements and then adapt them into like, for example, even on the front of this of your Blu-ray, there's a lot of movement you do with your arms swinging out. There's that scene where you come out of the water like that.
It's referencing to the wind and to the balance. How the condor flies and the balance and he opens and he just floats with the wind and he's like taking the wind and actually that's why there's some scenes on the movie that I'm kind of doing that to finding my inner balance, so it's pretty cool. And to that I've been training a lot of animal flow, mobility, and throwing a little bit of all my journey as a martial artist. You see some boxing, you see taekwondo, you see some acrobatics, you see karate, you see a little bit of everything that is part of my journey as a martial artist. That was the whole idea.
Now, the other thing you did, a lot, and I won't say most, a lot of martial arts movies show the hero working on the wooden dummy, the Wing Chun dummy.
Yeah.
You have a scene in this movie where you do that, but this dummy looks a little bit different than the ones we normally see. Explain how and why you changed that dummy up.
Yeah, it's because the same thing. Because me as a martial artist, I wanted to play an homage to the wooden dummy, but I also wanted to do my version of wooden dummy because my influence as a martial artist. So, for example, I added the high attacks when you're boxing, and if you're doing boxing and you're getting these hooks, open hands, or like roundhouse kicks to the face. Then you have this classic block that is up here, right? Yes. Instead of the little wooden dummy that is on, everything is very close here, right? So the positioning, and because you're wrestling, so sometimes you're blocking here and you're right there under to tackle. So it's a different posture than when you're doing like Wing Chun, that is all very straight and your center is right there and everything is here. You see, that's one thing. But when you're doing MMA, you also can tackle. So it's suddenly you block, boom, you go, boom, and then you tackle and you get in. And so I needed to adapt the wooden dummy to be able to kind of feel that it feels like what I do in my training,
Yeah, cool. For a while there, you were actually thinking about doing the MMA before you got involved in the movies, right?
Yes. There was a moment in my career that I was a little disappointed of, we did some movies in Chile. They did very good worldwide, but I was not able to do that step that I wanted to, right? So I was like, yeah, you know what? Maybe I'm just gonna switch and I'm gonna just be a fighter, And then I start training like almost 5 years MMA and wrestling and all that, like a submission fighting. And that's then when life called me back and said, look, I received a call from Robert Rodriguez to do Machete Kills. And that's when I go, wow, I gotta continue here. I need to make a decision, right? And that was fun. And then what happened after that, I did Redeemer, that I was able to apply all this MMA to my choreography, and it's pretty cool,
So when you're training, is it more difficult to train for MMA or more difficult to train for the movies?
They're both require full time, because you need to, like, if you want to do good fight scenes and you want to be able to perform, you need to be a high athlete trainer. Like, you need to train like a high athletic, the same with MMA. You're not going to be a fighter if you don't dedicate your life to it. The same thing with movies. Is like, the only reason I can pull off these fight scenes in my movies is because I have to be training and ready and tune up my nutrition, and everything needs to be precise in order to perform like that, in order to look like that. So the body and the look is very important for the role, plus the performance, because you're fighting 10 hours a day. You're not just doing like pretending for the movie. Like, especially when it's the more low budget movies, you're really like pushing hard, because the movie relies on your performance.
Sure, that makes sense. Robert Rodriguez is one of my favorite directors. I love his work. I think it's pretty interesting that he gave you a call to be in the Machete movie. That's a big break. That's pretty nice.
Yeah, that's inspiring, man. He's an inspiration, in the film as a filmmaker.
So when I was looking you up online, Marco, I found that you've gone through a series of, well, some of them I think are kind of strange diets that you've done through your life. You did like the keto. First, you went all vegan, and then you did the keto thing. And the last thing I saw was that you were practicing the carnivore diet. Is that a legitimate thing? I've never heard of the carnivore diet. Is that?
Yeah. Yes. Trust me, I experiment everything with nutrition in my life. There was a moment in my life when I was about to do Redeemer that I was having problems. Like, I was having a lot of inflammation in my knees, acne, and I was falling asleep everywhere. I was having issues. Like, there was something wrong, right? Off. And before, like, it was right before the movie. So I went to see my knee, and they told me, well, you got to do surgery. There's a little, it's done, right? It's like, oh, well, I guess I'm getting old, whatever, like, it's part of the thing. I train a lot. So I didn't see it like okay, I was assuming that was normal, right? The acne, they were telling me, yeah, you got to take this pill to control the hormone. I'm like, I didn't want to take this chemical thing. So I tried it, and then I just didn't continue. So my face was all like crazy, and I didn't know what was going on, and sadly my coach, Carlos Cardemil, told me, man, Marco, you should investigate in ketogenic, low carb performance. And that, it was amazing. Like, it really changed my life, and my knee until today never swole again. I didn't do surgery. So I didn't do anything. And then I after 10 years, I'm training as hard as I was training before. I never had an inflammation in my knee again, or a pain in my knee again.
Wow.
And I was about to jump in the surgery room because I couldn't handle the pain and the inflammation in my knee every time I trained. So that was so crazy that I went into obsessive understanding of human body and nutrition and performance. I went really deep on studying this, and that's how I end up like doing like a 6 years strict ketogenic. I was measuring my blood every day, measuring ketone bodies, and trying different approaches for the ketogenic diet, listening podcasts and stuff like that. Then I transitioned more into in a vegetarian ketogenic diet, then vegan ketogenic diet. Then I transitioned into a carnivore diet, carnivore ketogenic diet, and then just a strict carnivore diet. And now I will say I'm doing like a hybrid. Like I'm in and out. I use both. I use from both worlds. I use glycogen stores and glucose for training, but I also do intermittent fasting, and I do like a carnivore approach part of the day, and then I do carbs in the other part of the day. So it depends on my intensity, depends on my training. But yes, I've done, like a lot of research on it. And today I will say I'm like carnivore-ish diet with some fruits and some carbs in a very specific way. But basically all my nutrients, they come from animal products, like a carnivore diet, like beef liver. I do a lot, egg yolks, sardines, I try to do organ meats, beef, a lot of ground beef, and stuff like that.
Oh, very good. Very good. Let's go back to the movies. What's next on your plate? I read somewhere it's a movie called 100, is it 100 Rifles? Did I get that right?
No. That was a commercial that we did with Robert Rodriguez. 100
okay.
years. That was a commercial for Remy Martin, the cognac. It's there because it looks like it's gonna be premiere like in 100 years or something. It was a strategy marketing thing for that. It's pretty cool.
Okay, so is the next movie the second Fist of the Condor? Is that what's next for you?
We have a project with Scott Adkins that is looking like we might be doing that soon and have some more news soon about that. I cannot talk much about it, but it's a movie called Diablo that we're gonna shoot in Chile together. They just released a news in Deadline through when they were at Cannes Film Market. So that's looking like it could happen. So I'm crossing my fingers, and of course, Fist of the Condor 2 is something that I would love to do as soon as possible. So I guess it's gonna depend on the DVD release and the Blu-ray release, and see the love of the people and the support, and depending on that, I guess we'll be doing Fist of Condor 2.
Well, that'll be great. I know you work with Scott Adkins in John Wick Chapter 4. So Scott is a good guy. I had the opportunity to meet him. He's a good martial artist and a good guy. The name of the movie is Fist of the Condor. It is releasing now on Blu-ray. Here's a copy of the deluxe Blu-ray edition. Marco Zaror, I am so happy, sir, that you stopped by the cameras to talk to us today. Best of luck with this movie, and I tell you what, I can't wait to see the next one. I want to see these two brothers fight. I really do.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much, and thanks for the support, man. You guys have the power to make it happen.
Well, if we can help over here, we certainly will. Thank you very much for stopping by.